We all know that having a home that is nice to look at is a dream of every Warframe player. After a long day of massacring underpaid pawns, rotting potatoes and void abominations, we kinda deserve it. So hello everyone, my name is Quad and this is a very long video that will inform you on how to unlock most of the dojo's colors. If you do not know what I'm talking about, let's first go over a few basics. When you build a dojo, you may color it into different types of colors. The colors can be changed one room at a time, but for it you will need to build a polychrome. To do that, you need to open your menu, go under decorations, and choose the polychrome room option. This will allow you to place down a polychrome, which you need to place in a room you want colored. When you place it down, go out of the menu and interact with the polychrome. Here you will see a few options. Let's first go over the third one. Change room colors will allow you to change the colors of the room. If you go back to option 4, this one will allow you to change the lighting colors of the room. If you go back to option 2, preview colors, this option will allow you to walk around and view if you like the selected colors. And lastly, we have the first option, fund construction. After you select all the colors, you will have to provide a few resources in order to recolor the room. And after you do provide them, you will need to wait 24 hours for the room to get recolored. After those 24 hours, the polychrome will get removed and the room will be recolored. If you are in a hurry for one reason or another, you're able to rush the painting of the room by going to the polychrome again, choosing rush and providing 1 platinum. I don't recommend it though, since it's just paint, you know, but if you want to, you can do it. And at this point, I think you may ask yourself, which colors can I use? Well, you can't use the usual color palettes you get with warframes and weapons. You will actually have to unlock every single color. To unlock all the colors, you will first need to build the Tenno lab in the dojo. The console in the back of the lab will have all the research you need to get done. Each research will require you to farm pigment pieces from specific enemies, which can be very long and nerve-wracking process for some of the colors you want. The amount of pigments you need to farm for each color is different and depends on the tier of your dojo. If you have a ghost clan, you will require the base amount of pigment for your research. Shadow tier clans require 3 times more pigments, Storm tier clans require 10 times more pigments, Mountain tier clans require 30 times more pigments, and the Moon tier clans require 100 times more pigments. In this video, I will only show and mention the base requirement for the pigment amount, as if you were in a ghost dojo. So the only thing you need to do if you're in a higher tier clan is multiply with the numbers I mentioned before. So yeah. Before we continue, let me show you real quick how to unlock one of the pigments. First, you need to select the pigment you want to get. After you start the research, the enemies will actually drop the pigment you need. Before that, they will not. The pigment drops count as normal resources, so you may use loot frames and other resource boosters to increase the amount you get. When you collect enough of the pigments you want, you need to go back here and provide them into the research. But when you provide them in the research, you will have to wait 36 hours. During which you will not be able to farm the other pigments. And oh yeah, you will also need 10,000 credits for each research there. So, if you're looking to farm the pigments as quickly as possible, there is a little workaround. What you can do is provide a lot but 1 pigment you need to complete the research. You can then pause the research and start the research on another pigment. The only thing you must be sure to do is actually providing the pigments you need, since pausing the research will destroy all the excess pigments you farmed up. For example, I can get myself 19 pigments for Elysium Blue. Providing the 19 pigments out of 20 I need to the research, I then pause it. After that, I can start Devar Grey Pigment, for example, and do the same, providing the 399 pigments, and so on and so on. This will allow you to essentially save time by getting most of the pigments and then just getting one to finish up after you research everything. You probably do not want to do this with most pigments since some are an absolute nightmare to get, which I will also mention later on. But yes, this method I just mentioned allows you to pretty much farm up almost all the pigments and then just getting one day when you don't have a lot of time, and well, you stock up on everything when you have a lot of time, so yeah, it's just, it saves a little time, you know. Anyways, I think I shared most of the info you need, so let's look at where to find the enemies for each type of pigment and how hard it is to farm everything up. We will go in the first letter of the name order, with some being thrown in here and there, so I don't need to explain everything twice. I will also tell you how difficult the pigment is to get, if it is easy, medium, hard, or a nightmare. So let's go and start with the first one, 01000011 Cyan. 01000011 Cyan pigment can be acquired by killing Terra Raptor SX drones. They can be found in the ore Vallis, and you will almost never see them roaming around unless the alert level in the ore Vallis is at maximum. But there are a few ways to speed that up. You may try to liberate the outposts around the ore Vallis. This will spawn quite a couple of them. Secondly, you may try going to the temple fabrication location, since some do spawn there sometimes. And the third way, you may go to one of the outposts that can give you Phorids, the Enrichment Labs, Spaceport, and Temple of Profit, and raise the alarm there by leaving the corpus that carried them alive for some time. Once the alarm level comes to level 3, they should start to spawn. You may also try and do tier 3 and tier 4 bounties of the Overtaker orb, which you can start in the back room of Fortuna. The Terra Raptor SX drones do spawn there, but they are quite rare. Honestly, this is one of the hardest pigments to farm up in the game, but it's not yet a nightmare. You need 300 of this pigment, and the drop chance is not the best, so you will need a lot of patience. Anti-Violet is, in my opinion, one of the hardest pigments to farm in the whole game. It is true that you only need 10, but the enemy you can get this pigment from is so rare you will want to pull out your hair, which is a win for people who are bald here. You can get the Anti-Violet pigment from the Zanuka Hunter, which will spawn only after you get marked for death by the Corpus. To get marked, you will need to help the Grenier side in the invasions 5 times in a row. At some point you will receive this message in your inbox. Before this message you will also receive a little threat, which is nothing, just overlook it, it's nothing. But yeah, if you want to see if you are marked, you can go to your profile and look at the marks at the bottom of the screen. But now let's go over the hard part, spawning the Zanuka Hunter. Zanuka Hunter has an absolutely random chance to appear in any Corpus mission you play in. Of course, you have to be marked in order for it to spawn. You may also try buying Zanuka Hunter beacons from Barrow-Kitir when he brings them around. But I only recommend you do it if you're swimming in ducats and credits, because it is quite expensive. Also, the Zanuka prototype in the Aladvi Assassination mission does not drop the pigment, which, you know, some of us were trying to be smart and outperform the system, but yeah, we're not getting this the easy way. You need 10 Anti-Violet pigment in total, and will get 1 per Zanuka Hunter killed. This is an absolute nightmare of a pigment to farm, and is one of the hardest pigments to get in the game. Definitely a nightmare level difficulty here. Argon Purple is a relatively easy pigment to get, but you will need to first complete the second dream quest. This will unlock Lua and the 2 missions called Yuvarium and Circulus. These are conjunction survival missions which will spawn the enemies you need to kill, called Lua Thrax Legatus. These enemies spawn every time you get a reward in the mission in various numbers. I recommend you do this mission on public or in a squad, since this will spawn more of them. You will need 120 pigment in total, which can easily be farmed up in like 30 minutes or less. The difficulty level of getting these is in my opinion medium, due to the time you need to waste to get the pigments. But be sure to play on public, even if you're a solo player. There's nothing to fear. Tempest Brown is the second pigment you may get from Yuvarium and Circulus missions on Lua, same as the Argon purple pigment. This time, however, you will have to kill Eclipse Thrax Centurions, which is the second type of enemy that will spawn every time you get a reward in Conjunction Survivals. You will need 300 of these, so getting everything shouldn't be a problem. They are a bit more common than the Lure Thrax Legatus, but the difficulty to get these is in my opinion still medium, due to the time you need to waste. Autumn Brown pigment is quite easy to get. They are dropped by corrupted Moas, which you can find in the void very easily. They are not the most common of enemies, but also not the least as well. You need about 300 of this pigment, which you can easily farm up, so yeah, the difficulty is easy. Boiler Red is a very easy pigment to get, but it may be a bit tricky as it only drops from the Phorid boss. Phorid Assassination can only be played on the Assassination nodes that are affected by the Infestation Outbreak mission. You can look for the invasions in the upper right corner when navigating the star chart. Honestly, it is not hard at all, but sometimes there are no missions affected by infestation outbreaks, so yeah, I would say it is a medium difficulty to get all 10 pigments due to the time constraint. Charger Blue is a pigment that is relatively easy to get, but you will need quite some time. You can get it by killing toxic ancients in any infested missions you can find. They are more common in the endless missions and spawn in higher and higher numbers after the first 2 rotations of the mission. You need 180 pigments in total, which may take you quite some time, so I'd say getting it is not the easiest and also not the hardest, so medium. I recommend doing Terra survival on Deimos. Conductor Gold is only found from enemies called Embattor Moas and Elite Embattor Moas. They can only be found in the Vallis, but luckily they can be found relatively easily. If you want to farm them up quickly, I recommend doing the bounties or going to one of the Corpus areas and triggering the alarm. The best location to get them are the enrichment labs, in my opinion, and you only need 5 pigments, which is extremely easy to get. Coolant Blue is only obtainable from Terra Overtakers and Elite Terra Overtakers, which you can find in the Vallis. They spawn the most when the alert level is 3, but also spawn regularly on alert level 4. I suggest you go and farm toroids while farming these guys as well, because you will need 500 pigment in total, which will take you an insanely long time. Due to the time needed to get this, I'd say the farm is hard. You'll get bored to death. Crawler Blue pigment is relatively easy to get. You will need to kill infested crawlers, which are quite common in endless infested missions. The amount of pigment you need is 400 and they drop in low amounts, so I'd say the difficulty of getting it is medium, just due to how many you have to kill. Dust Brown pigment can be acquired by killing corrupted lancers in any mission in the void. You need 550 pigment in total, which is something you can easily get in just a couple of missions, if not one. It is honestly one of the easiest pigments to farm up, so yeah, the difficulty is definitely easy. Devar Grey pigment can be obtained from the Tusk heavy bombards, which are only present on the plains of Eidolon. For farming these, I suggest doing bounties. Higher the tier of the bounty, higher the spawn rate of the Tusk heavy bombards will be. You will need 400 of these in total, with each Tusk heavy bombard dropping 5 at a time, with a 20% drop chance. I'd say this pigment is relatively easy to farm up since you get lots of rewards, standing with the Ostrons and so on. but the fact is that need lots of it, so I'd say farming it can be hard because it can get very boring very quickly. Elysium Blue is one of the easiest pigments to get. You need to assassinate the Sergeant on Phobos lots of times and that is it. Yeah, it's easy. You will need 20 pigments in total, with each assassination dropping 1 if no boosters are active. It might take some time, but is extremely easy to get. False Orange is a pigment that can be obtained only by killing the Void Angels. You can either kill the Void Angels that come from the statues that you have to summon, or you can kill the Ravenous Void Angels, which you can find in the Void Armageddon mode on the Zarimon, so quite late game. I'd say the best way is to go after the statues because you also get Void Plume Pinions, but the Void Armageddon mission is a lot faster. You'll need 15 pigments in total, with every angel dropping 1 on kill. It is not the hardest or the most time-consuming pigment to get, so I'd say it deserves a medium difficulty mark. Glacial Blue Pigment can be obtained from the Corpus crewmen of this specific variety. They will hold a Terra rifle and are only found on the Corpus Outpost tileset on Venus and Neptune, Corpus Icy Planet tileset on Europa, or on the Lua tilesets that feature Corpus enemies, such as Copernicus Capture Mission. You will need 200 pigment of Glacial Blue and the crewman will drop 10 at a time with a 10% drop chance. Because of this, you can easily get the pigment in very short time, especially if playing endless missions such as excavations. I'd say the difficulty to get this is easy, even though it may take some time. Harmony Green Pigment can be obtained by killing Thrax Centurions, present only on the Zarimon tileset. There are numerous ways to find them, with the best ones being MOBA defense missions, where they will come with every terminal activation, and even better, with every Void Cascade possession of the Crystallizer. You will need 400 of the Harmony Green Pigment, and every Thrax enemy only drops 5 per kill, so this one will take you quite some time to get. At least you will get lots of quite good arcanes with them though. In my opinion, it is hard to get these due to being so boring to obtain, but the rewards do speak for themselves. Hesperia Brown Pigment can be obtained from Grineer Troopers. They are an uncommon enemy on all Grineer tile sets around Mercury, Saturn, and Sedna. Doing longer survival missions is in my opinion the best. You will need 420 Hesperia Brown Pigment in total, with each trooper having a 20% drop chance for 5 pigments. Not the best, but also not the worst. I'd say the difficulty to get this pigment is medium just because of the rarity of this enemy, and thus the time to farm everything up. Jackal Yellow Pigment can be found from deceased Corpus Sniper crewmen. They can be found on the Corpus Ice planet on Europa and Corpus Outposts on Neptune and Venus. They are yellow and you will see little ratlets all around you when you're around them, so it is not that hard to get them, but they are quite rare. You will need 50 pigments in total, with each sniper crewman dropping 1 pigment at a time. I'd say the difficulty to get these is medium. Leaf Red Pigment and its farm is quite unpredictable. It will only drop from any form of Stalker, the normal Stalker, Shadow Stalker, or the Protector Stalker. You will need to get 5 in total, which doesn't seem like much, but you do have to know that summoning the Stalker can be quite unpredictable. If you don't know how to summon the Stalker, you just need to do any assassination mission, after which you will get this message. This will get you marked by the Stalker, which gives him the ability to ambush you in almost any mission you do, which makes it quite unpredictable. Because of this, I'd say that farming this pigment is quite hard. Bleach Green Pigment can be obtained from the Corrupted Crewmen, which are a common enemy in every Void mission you will ever play. You will need 150 pigment in total, and each crewman has a 10% chance to drop 10 at a time. I'd say farming this pigment is very easy just because how common these corrupted crewmen are. So yeah, very easy. Memoriam Purple is a very peculiar pigment to farm. You can only get it from the Terra Professor units in the orb Vallis. They will fly around and engage you from the distance, but the problem is not in how hard they are to kill, it is how hard they are to come by. You can summon them anywhere in the orb Vallis by raising the alarm levels to at least 2. You can also summon a couple by liberating Solaris United camps across the whole orb Vallis. And you may also find a few while doing the last Prophet Taker bounty. You will need 250 of this pigment, with the drop chance being 10%, and they drop 10 at a time. In my opinion, this is a nightmare of a pigment to farm because the enemy is so rare. Moa Green Pigment can be found by destroying the Orokin drones in any Void mission. It is extremely easy to get and you only need 200. The drop chance is 20% and the drop rate is 5, which means the farming can be done very easily in any endless Void mission. Morning Yellow Pigment can be obtained from the Corpus Leech Osprey units. They are extremely rare and can only be found on Corpus Ice planet tileset on Europa and on Corpus Outpost tileset on Neptune. I honestly don't have any good guidance when it comes to these ones, other than doing Exterminate and Mobile Defense missions on these two planets. You will need 350 of these pigments and the drop rate is 1 per Osprey, which is an absolute nightmare. Mortis Pink Pigment can be found by killing Tusk Flameblades. These guys are only found on the plains of Eidolon during the bounties. I myself usually play them solo, so finding these is relatively easy since they only target me. But if you play in a group, it can be quite tricky. They are a rare enemy, a very rare enemy sometimes, so playing at higher difficulty is a bit better. You will need 5 in total with 10% drop chance and 10 pigments per kill. Some people can easily find them and some have lots of problems, so I'd say the difficulty of getting this one is hard. Mutalist Red Pigment can be acquired by killing Tar Mutalist Moas. They are a rare enemy in any infested mission, but they shouldn't be such a problem. You can find them in Gabi's survival mission on Ceres, for example. You will need 150 pigment in total, and each Tar Mutalist Moa has a 50% chance to drop 2, which makes it a medium difficulty grind in my opinion. Nanite Blue Pigment is quite easy to get. You can get it by killing infested chargers in any infested mission. You will need 550 pigments in total, and the chargers drop 10 of them at a 10% drop chance. Because of this, I'd say that the farming experience you will have is a medium difficulty just because you need to kill around 550 chargers, which can take quite some time. Neo Pink Pigment is very close to a nightmare to get. You can only get it from the Terra Trencher Corpus units in the orb Vallis. Now here are a few ways to summon these enemies. The first way is by going to the enrichment labs and letting the alarm build up. At alarm level 2 and 3, they will usually spawn and attack you. Besides that, you can also try liberating Solaris camps, which may summon a few Terra Trenchers here and there. And you may also do the last tier of the Prophet Taker, which is probably the best way to get them. But yeah, you will need 400 pigments, with each Terra Trencher dropping 5 at 20% drop chance. An absolute nightmare if you ask me. Night Blue Pigment can be found only by assassinating Counselor Vayhek's Terraframe in his assassination mission on Earth. You will need 10 pigment in total, with Vayhek dropping 1 each time you assassinate him. Because of this, the difficulty of farming up this pigment is...
Dano! You think you're winning? You have only been attacking the auxiliary cores! Did you really believe it would be this easy? I will personally throw your
Oak Brown Pigment can be found by killing Grineer Butchers in Grineer missions. I recommend doing a long survival on Saturn or Sedna for this one. You will need 500 pigment in total, with them dropping in quantities of 5 with 20% drop chance. Because of this, I'd say the difficulty of getting this pigment is medium, just because you need to kill lots of butchers. Olympus Blue Pigment can be found by killing Grineer Lancers, which may sound good, but it is actually not the best. Grineer Lancers are present only in Grineer missions that are lower than level 25. I suggest you try and farm them on Earth Everest Excavation mission. They are very common there and endless. You need to get 480 pigments, with them dropping in pieces of 10 at 10% drop chance. Since this may take you a long time, but the enemies are the most common, the difficulty I give this one is medium. Railgun Blue Pigment can be obtained from the Railgun Moas. They are not the most common of enemies, but also not terribly rare. You can find them on any Corpus Outpost tile set on Venus and Pluto, Corpus Icy planet tile set on Europa, and also on Lua. I recommend you farm these on Lua due to the mission being of the survival variety. You will need 250 pigment in total, with each Railgun Moa dropping 1. Because the enemy is not the most common and the drop amount is not the best, it will take you quite some time to get all these pieces you need. So I'd say farming these will be quite hard, if not using any boosters. River Blue Pigment can only be obtained from the Seeker enemies. You can find these only on Ceres and Sedna. You do have to remember that you need the normal Seekers only, not any other variety, for example the Frontier ones. I recommend you farm for the pigment on Sedna, note Selkie Survival, because you will need to get lots of them. You will need 250 pigments in total, but the Seekers do drop them at 100% chance, but only 1 per kill. Because the Seeker enemy is quite rare, it will take you quite some time to get all the pigment you need, so just because of the time you need, well, farming this one is going to be hard in my opinion. You really do need a side gig on this one. Sand Yellow Pigment can be obtained from Scorpion enemies present in any Grineer missions. They are quite common enemies, so getting this pigment shouldn't be too much of a hassle, but also not the fastest thing ever. I suggest doing any Grineer Galleon or Grineer Asteroid-based survival mission, such as Selkie on Sedna. Just remember that you need to kill the normal Scorpion enemies and not any of its varieties. You need 350 of this pigment, and the Scorpions will drop 2 of them with 50% drop chance. Not the best, but also not the worst. In my opinion, the difficulty for farming this one is medium, just because this enemy is not the most common, but it is also available everywhere. Shard Black Pigment is relatively easy to get, but it will take you quite some time. You can get it by killing Eidolon Vombalists on the plains of Eidolon. They only spawn at night, meaning you have a limited time window to get them. I recommend you fly around, which will allow you to find them in groups of 3, or you can try doing Eidolon runs, which spawns them from time to time. Honestly, farming these is quite a pain if you have limited time. You will need 250 in total, with 10 dropping at 10% drop chance, which means you will get 1 per Vombalist on average. Not the best if you ask me, so yeah, this one is quite hard to farm, unless you're able to partake in the Tridolon bounty. Syrtis Orange Pigment can be obtained from the Arid Eviscerators. These guys can only be found on the Mars style set. They are rare enemy, which means you will have a tough time. I recommend you play any endless game modes such as Excavation and Disruption, depending on what you are looking for besides the pigments. You will need 220 in total, with 1 dropping from each Arid Eviscerator. It may be a pain to get them, so I'd say this one is hard to farm. Tharsis Brown Pigment can be found by killing Ballistas in any Grineer mission on the Asteroid-based tile set or the Grineer Galleon tile set, and actually lots of other places. I recommend you do a Grineer Survival on Saturn or Sedna, but you may also do any other endless mission. You will need 300 pigments in total, with each ballista dropping 2 at a 50% drop chance. These are not the most common enemies, but also not terribly rare. But the amount of pigments they drop is not the best as well, and because of this farm deserves a hard difficulty stamp. Tower White Pigment is a bad joke. You will need to kill Kuva Jesters, which only appear on the Kuva Fortress tile set or in the Kuva Siphon missions. They are very rare enemies, with the best mission to get them being the Kuva Survival, in my opinion. You will need 300 of these in total, with each Kuva Jester dropping exactly 1. A very bad joke here if you ask me, and also an absolute nightmare. Tree Green Pigment can be obtained from Arid Lancers, which are only present on the Mars style set. They are a very common enemy, but you will need to play on the missions that are level 25 or lower. You will need 450 pigment in total, with each Arid Lancer dropping 1. In my opinion, getting this one is not easy, but also not hard since you need to kill 450 enemies. So yes, a medium difficulty. Velt Yellow Pigment can be obtained from the Thrax Legatus enemies. They only appear on the Zariman tile sets. The best missions to find them are definitely the Exterminate and the Mobile Defense missions. They are the rare version of the Thrax enemies, so they are not that easy to get and find, but luckily you only need 150 of this pigment at 5 pigment per Thrax Legatus kill. I'd say a medium difficulty is a reasonable estimate here. Wisp Grey is the last pigment we will take a look at, and it is an absolute nightmare. You can get it only from Darrigan pilots, which spawn on the plains of Eidolon. The best way to find them is to fly around during daytime and spot them in groups of 2. They have their Darrigans just parked there, so it shouldn't be that hard to find them. A friendly word of advice: do not sprint while in the Archwing, because that will not summon them for some reason. Just keep it slow and move around watching stuff. Yeah, it's just a nightmare. You will need 500 of these pigment, with each pilot dropping 5 at 20% drop rate. I truly recommend boosters with this one, because it is an absolute nightmare. And that sums up every pigment in Warframe, which enemies drop them, where to get it, and how hard it is to get it. I myself know I dreaded farming the Darrigan pilots, Zanuka hunters, and any Vallis ones. I definitely recommend a booster for these ones, but yeah, it was back in the day, like 5 years ago during COVID. It was insane. Some pigments may be easier to farm up than others for you depending on where you are in your game progress. If you're on the steel path, you will have a very easy time most of the time, and if you just started, you will not have a very easy time. Most of my difficulty estimates are based on time needed, which shortens quite a lot depending on your progress, so take every one of these with a grain of salt or sometimes even a whole scoop. But remember, this is all subjective. Some people don't get bored so easily as I do. Yeah, I'm getting bored right now, just ranting. Anyways though, tell me down in the comments which pigment have you hated to farm the most, and which one do you think is the easiest. Also, if you know any other places or have any recommendations, be sure to let me know, and others as well, down in the comments. I am very curious. This was the first video after a very long break I took, so be sure to stay tuned because right now things are going to get serious for a change. Previously it was not, but now it is. Thank you again, have a very nice day, and I wish you goodbye.